Hi, welcome to My Messy Fingers. We're on a new adventure with a new album. This time it is featuring Cial newest collection called Paris Je t'aime. I had to look that up to make sure I was pronouncing it right, but it's Je t'aime. Paris, I love you. So this is what I'm going to be making. First thing I'm going to start with is the actual album build. If you have a method of an album that you prefer to use, by all means. This is for those that do not have an established method and who want to follow along in order to build and create an album from scratch. So what we're going to start with will be 2 9x9 pieces. So this album is going to be 9 by 9. By time we're done wrapping it, it's going to be closer to 9 1/4 by 9 1/4 because of the paper wrapping. It creates depth on the edges. So just so that you know, the actual chipboard is going to be 9 by 9. You're going to want 2 of those. Then you're going to want 1 piece for your spine. So it's going to measure 1 7/8 by 9. You just need 1. And then I use tyvek to bind my albums. The tyvek is what will go on the outside of the album, and it will fit in like this. So then when you turn this over, this is what you will see, and this is what the cardstock travels on. So as you're opening the book, instead of this flexing on top of the chipboard, it's actually flexing on this, which has a, I'm going to say, a 99% zero tear rate. I've never been able to tear it, but I'm not going to say 100 because I don't back or make the product. But it is a great source to use for binding. It is called tyvek. It's a shipping envelope, and you see them at any of the stationery stores. Just have to Google tyvek, and it is spelt Tyvek, tyvek. So you're going to want 2 of these. These measure 2 inches by 8.5 inches. You'll want 2. You're going to score both of them at 7/8 and then at 1 1/8. You're going to build a 1/4 inch gusset down the middle of this so that when we go to put these together, we have a gusset that we can follow, and it gives us the appropriate spacing that we're going to need in between the chipboard panels. I always play with a 1/4 inch that allows for the flex, the turn, and for anything that that needs to be built and pushed inside, and you'll see that as we go along. Now, your cardstock, I am wrapping this with a 65-pound weight cardstock. Now, the internal pages that we will be making and the support page, it's the same color, but this is a 100-pound weight. I prefer the sturdiness of a heavier weight cardstock when you're adding a bunch of weight onto this with the paper for each of the signatures, so when it turns inside the album, there's a sturdiness to this. So I prefer 100-pound, but I will wrap in 65-pound weight. The color of the cardstock I'm using is called Ebony, and I get it from Cardstock Warehouse. You can get it in 25 sheet packs, which is what I would highly recommend because we're going to be going through a lot of cardstock. And it doesn't hurt to have leftover black cardstock. So this, you're going to measure 1. This is coming in at approximately 11 1/8. by 11. Okay, 11 1/8 wide by 11 tall. Your second panel is going to, let's get this one out of here so I can see what I'm looking at here. This one is going to measure at 11 3/8 wide by, and it should still be the 11 tall. I think that's easier for people to understand, tall versus wide. I put too much tape on this, so just ignore it. I'm going to end up turning this over. But I'm using a 3/8 wide tape. I'm going to tape these two together. And then when I start building this, the spine is going to sit, I want that seam right in the middle. This is going to be a lot of stress on this, so I don't want it anywhere near a flexion point, and I personally don't like seeing a seam in the front of my work. So the seam will go on the spine, and then everything else will line up accordingly. Now, I've allowed for a 1-inch border to go around so that we can wrap that over the edges of the chipboard. So let's go ahead and get started first with putting this together. So let's start with taking off a strip. And I'm going to match this line right up here. I want it right up next to that 1/4 inch. I am also going to give you a disclaimer. I make mistakes. I'm human. But when I make a mistake, it's a teaching moment for you, because then you'll not make that mistake. So I think that ends up being a wonderful win. Just to warn you that I make mistakes. Okay, now this one here is where we're going to put the spine piece. It's just going to line, I want to make sure that these are level. I'm going to line this up with my grid, and then I'm going to lay this right on that score mark, and down it goes. Come on. Oh, that's right, it ran out. The tape roll ran out, so I had 2 strips here. Give it a good burnish. And then we're going to come in with this piece, and now we're going to add it in to the spine. Okay, and then I'm just going to take this and bring it right up to that score line, which is the edge of the tape. And now we're going to add the next panel. And I only take one piece of tape off at a time, because if I have to readjust something, I don't want to be removing 2 things of tape. So I just take it one at a time. So I'm going to line this up with my grid on my tabletop. And then come in here and line this up. All right, this is built. So now we're going to start with the paper. So I'm going to take this off, and then silly me, I put extra tape. I guess it can't hurt on the reverse side of this one. All right, I'm just going to simply follow up the tape, the line of the tape, and put it together. So now we are in a position to start connecting these two pieces. But the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to turn this over, and we are going to use some tape across the back to add to our cardstock. I'm going to use 1/2 inch here on the very edge of the cardstock. I don't want the Tyvek to separate away, so not that it has ever done that, and I've made a score of albums. Okay, and then I'm going to take 1/4 inch tape, and I'm going to come down here on this end, and then I'm going to come in the middle, and then I'm going to come in the middle of each section again. I want to make sure that cardstock is connected to the chipboard so that it's not popping up and down. If you're a card maker or a layout maker, you know what it looks like when paper isn't adhered down, and then you can see if you touch it, it does that popping up and down. Well, I don't want that on the album, so I use tape to make sure that it is going to be secured. All right, now give it a good old burnish. And then I'm going to take 1/2 inch tape, and I'm going to go all the way around the perimeter. I'm going to get this much done. There's more tape we'll be adding, but we'll be adding it to the inside when we get ready to wrap this. Now I use great big long strips. If you don't want to use a long strip and you want to use shorter strips, that's entirely up to you. It's whatever works the easiest. All right, so there. Now this is going to go down, and then we're going to add some tape. I'm going to use 3/8 inch, and we're going to go around the edge here. I want all my taping done. One last strip to go. Give it a good firm burnish. All right, ta-da. Okay, this is how I do this. I get myself pretty well positioned where I'm looking at roughly the same amount of black all the way around the album. Now I'm going to palm this side. I'm going to hold it down very firmly, and I'm going to take the tape off the spine. And then I'm going to lay this back down. And I want to make sure that my seam is here in the center of the spine, or as close to center as we can get it. Now, I will go about taking off the tape now that we have the center, the spine in place. Now it's real important that you give a gentle tug to keep this section here open, because it can have a tendency to kind of do this on you or kind of buckle like this. You want to have a firm hold on it so that when you go to lay it down, this section remains open. So now we will do the same on this side. Same thing, I'm going to give a nice gentle tug, and then I'm going to lay it down. Sorry for the noise, but I want to press firm and make sure that that tape is really in there where it belongs. Okay, now I'm going to miter my corners. Come on. Okay, so first things first. This is 65-pound weight, so it's fairly easy to fold and crease. I do have different black that I use. That's 100-pound weight. There is no option for 65-pound weight, so I am really working it when I use that weight of paper. I'm going to take a little bit of this and I'm going to back it off so that when this lays down, it's not interfering. And I'm going to do the same down here. Take these strips off. And then I will take this great big strip off. Try and not knock anything over on my tabletop here. Okay. All right, now I'm going to, oh, well, that's not real good. Okay, so here's a, I'm not going to say it's so much of a mistake, but an issue. You see how this extends way up here beyond the corner? Not supposed to be like that. So that means I have I have an issue, I think, with placing the chipboard against the black cardstock. I didn't place it right, so if you'll bear with me, I simply cannot work with that being up there as high as it is. So I'm going to lift this and I'm going to pull it. Get that out of the way. I'm going to pull it and burnish it. I may have a warp in this, but it's going to get covered up if that's what happens. So much better. Okay, so now I can flatten and round that. And I'm going to have to wait for the tape to dry. Yeah, see, I have a little buckle right there, but that's going to get covered. So I'm going to pull this back a little bit, remove this. And like I said, folding that in. Okay, so let's go down here and let's do this end. Push that down in there. Now we'll take the rest of this off. The other really super long strip, try not to get anything off. It makes such a clutter. Okay, I call this smunching. I'm gonna smunch the corner, push it in. Whoops. And then I'm gonna do the same thing down here. So now the next thing we want to do is find something that has a nice big round ball on it, because what I want you to do is find this edge and you're going to gently, very gently push that black cardstock down into the gusset. Very gently. You can go over it repeatedly, but don't press too hard because you'll end up tearing the paper. And the reason I want this in there is it's going to build up some bulk here in a little bit, and I want as crisp of a corner when this book closes as I can muster. I'll show you what I'm after here when I get done. Okay, see, I don't know if you can, how well you can see it, but I'll bring it up close so you see how we have this burnished down in there on both sides. So then when you close this, you have a nice crisp corner. It isn't rounded because that paper stayed rounded rather than being pushed down into the gusset. All right, next step. You're going to cut a piece that's 6 inches wide, 6 inches wide by 8 7/8 tall, the height of this. And then we're going to come in here with some tape, and I'm going to tape the center because this is where the weight's going to end up being. Once we have our spine cover in. And the signatures will all fall in this section here. And then I want to put a 1/2 inch strip here and a 1/2 inch strip here. This is the section that by the time we get this on, this is the section here that has a tendency to bubble a little bit. So I will also put a 1/4 inch on each side so that it helps with the tension of folding the book over, that this doesn't bubble up. All right, now this piece, we're going to go around the edge with at least a 1/2 inch of tape. Okay, burnish. All right, now what you're going to do with this is you're going to center it as best as you can. And I am not beyond making a pencil mark deep down enough so I could say I lined it up there. What I'm looking for is roughly the edge of that chipboard to here, the edge of the chipboard to here, so I can actually slide this way a little bit. I pencil here on the inside because it'll all get covered up. Now we're going to take only one strip off. And then we're going to come back in here. We're going to line up to the pencil marks, and we're going to make sure that we're even distance top to bottom. And then I'll sneak in here and take the rest of the tape off. Now, I'm not going to commit this down yet, and I'll show you why here in a second, but I want to get in here, get this removed. Okay, same thing. Except this time, we're going to go the entire length of the gusset. We're going to push some of this down in there, and I just want to lay this down just gently. And then oh, you know what? I need to remove this tape here, the top and the bottom. Okay. Now I'm going to find very gently, once again, finding the edge of the chipboard, follow it up. I'm going to have to remove my pencil marks. They're going to be right in the way. Second fold, I'm going to just follow that chipboard piece very gently. Then I'll show you what I'm after. I want that clean, crisp corner, not a rounded one because we didn't do anything with the bulk over here. Does that make sense? Okay, so now I can take the tape off the end. And now I'm going to do the same thing over here. A gentle bend. Find where the edge of, if you tear, and I have done it, just take a clear drying glue and just seal the tear. There's nothing you can do. It is what it is. And I have done it. I get a little aggressive because I end up getting in a hurry, and I don't want to do that. So again, now we've got some nice clean corners. We don't have all that bulk. This is so smooth, and it's just about 1/4 of an inch, so I can get in there and kind of smooth that out just a little bit. Okay, so there, so far, that's what we have accomplished on our book. Now, the pages. You're gonna cut 2 sheets that are gonna measure 8 7/8 tall. Not going to worry about the width, the length of this yet, because to figure that out, we're going to come in here. I've got tape on this end. This has a 5/8 of an inch gusset, so 5/8 gusset, and I put a 1/2 inch strip of tape. So I'm going to bring this up to the spine and pretend like this is already in the book. Hold it still, and then I'm going to look down here. I want to be about 3/8 of an inch off the end of my chipboard piece. And the reason for that is I do big buildups, so every time I lay a piece of paper, 1/16 gets eaten up for every layer. So I want to make sure that there's plenty of room here to handle that buildup. Does that make sense? But I also want to have an even length and not a wacky one. So this is at 9.5 inches. Perfect. Okay, so we're going to trim this now down to 9.5 inches on both of them. Nine and a half, I'm level. Nine and a half, and I'm level. So now, I'm going to take this edge and I'm going to place it just behind where we've identified where that chipboard edge is. I'm going to place it just behind it. Not too far. And that laid down nice and straight. Now we're going to take the second page and we're going to take this, we're going to tuck right up underneath this seam. And I don't know why, but this is the one that I don't get it straight. I do, no, well, actually that didn't lay down too bad. Okay. All right, so you have 5/8 here, you have 5/8 here, and you have 5/8 here. This is an optical illusion because of the gusset. But there it is. That's your album. It is finished, and now we'll be moving on to wrapping and taking care of the outside. See you then.